give us chapter one. Where did this all start?
So the turning point was this. In I was part of a young adult group as I was working, and there was part in my heart that I felt sense of emptiness. And my mom had very religious. I just thank her and my dad, for passing on the faith. So she said to me, like, Elfie, why don't you go on a silent retreat? Like, just bring it up to God and just see what is he trying to tell you. I'm like, what? So I went and I in the silent retreat, there's a director that guides you, and then it's a self-led retreat, like in terms you meet with the director, the spiritual director, and then you go on and pray. So in that 3 days of being in retreat, the spiritual director said, like, you know what, Elfie, you really have to discern your vocation. I'm like, oh, I already did, sister. I'm for married life. So she's like, no, 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 that's not how it works. So she's like, I'm gonna give you a passage. So I reflected on the Annunciation and just bring it to Jesus and just in adoration. I was just there sitting and this is like so funny because like I was just telling Jesus like all of my hopes and dreams and journaling that, and if I become a mother and this is why, and my husband to be devoting our lives to you and that, and like if you ask me to be consecrated for you only and live out in the world, like I want to devote my life for my family and working with kids with special needs um and that's it. But then there's a tug and like, okay, there's one more vocation, Elfie. So then I'm like, okay, Lord, this whole religious thing. I grew up actually, it's funny, Thomas, all my life since kindergarten, high school, college, I grew up in a school with religious. In the Philippines, the sisters that ran our school were religious, and I went to a Dominican school in the Philippines. And but I just never thought that I could be one of them. And I guess because they were like, for me, I'm like, oh, they're already too holy for me. Like I am like just a simple kid, just having a great time. So in my prayer, it's like, Lord, I really don't know where to start. So I said, maybe in 3 years, I'm going to discern for 3 years and see where you're going to lead me. I kind of gave Jesus like I never recommend this to anybody discerning, like, Lord, I'm giving you 3 years. I'm not going to Google anything, but just come to me. I don't know how, but in a part of me, it's like, I know it's impossible. There's no way that orders are just going to come look for me, like, and so and I said, but they have to love the young. That's just like a big thing. So then I finished that retreat and I had my little things and I said to Lord, I promise you I will be the best wife I will be that I can, best daughter, best child of God. But then again, I realized not spouse, like that's a spouse of Christ. So to keep my end of the bargain, I guess the closest religious order in the area I lived in were the Benedictines. And so I have to keep it on a DL. Nobody has to know. And so I told my dad and like, oh, and my family, like, oh, I'm gonna go on like this retreat for young adults, but I went for a come and see. And that's when I fell in love with the Liturgy of the Hours. The Book of Psalms is one of my favorite books that I feel that the Lord has written all this feelings of how I pray and all that. And I said, like, oh, I could do this. And they work with kids with special needs, but I was like, no, I'm gonna be married. This is not, but I'm gonna pray. I like this prayer. I'm gonna take this with me. So a year passed, and then the second year comes along, and that tug of like, you made a promise, you're gonna visit three orders. And one of my friends comes home and we were hanging out and like, hey, I found this in the bulletin. And this is something that like, this is a very good friend of mine and I shared that I was doing this and why don't you go visit them? And I said, it's in Massachusetts. I'm not gonna go all the way to Massachusetts. And they're Cistercians. I'm like, what in the world are they? Or who are they? And my friend's like, go figure it out. I don't know. So I didn't even Google what Cistercians were. I just went and they were beautiful, beautiful group of women. Their main charism was really to pray for the church. And I was so moved with the way they pray. And Thomas, like I thought I knew how to pray. Um, One time they do all the offices of the day because that's their main charism, right? And they're cloistered. They had to put us in a different house, and we didn't even see their convent. There's this one time we were in prayer at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh, this is great, like praying. An hour later, they're still there and like, okay, praying still, like praying all glorious, joyful, sorrowful, luminous mystery, the chaplet, reading my spiritual books, they're still praying. And I'm like, Lord, how long do they pray? I was like, this is so long. And I'm like, just moving and trying not to fidget a lot because it's face to face, and that's where their chapel is set up. The altar is in the middle. Um, and I said, like, Lord, I have no more prayers. Like I ran out of things to pray. Like every single person I know I prayed for, and they're still quiet and praying, and you can't just leave. And so that was the moment where in like I was just quiet, and like the Lord's like, just shh. And I looked up, the roof, Thomas, is glass. So at that very moment, like I just felt like what beautiful sense of prayer of just being in silence in the presence of the Lord, and just in awe of God's creation, just looking up in the heavens and just like admiring God's creation. And I'm like, wow, thank you, God. Like, and then I realized, in my journey, it's like, Elfie, it's not much what you say that's important. It's like your presence of just being there in the presence of God with all these beautiful women just joining you and just being in adoration. And then I was able to chat with the vocation director, um, and that's when she said, I was sharing with her, I'm like, sister, this is a great life, but there's a lot of things that they don't do, and because of their charism and stuff, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to give that up. So then she's like, you don't have to. And then I learned what charisms were. Like, wow, like poof, I thought I knew a lot already about the faith, and I was already in my 20s, like 25 and 26 and that. And so she explained to me, Elfie, your charism is working with young people. And I said, oh, okay. So what do I do next, sister? So she's like, go check out the Salesians
Wow.
or the Sisters for Life, And I'm like, okay. So that's, and I totally forgot about that. And I just like, okay, nice trip. And then I realized it's like one more time, like I have to visit another order. And we were doing a conference for our young adult, and I was able to talk and research about the Sisters for Life. I love what they do and how beautiful it is that they believe in life and cater for this women and love the infants and babies. Oh my gosh, that's the sisters know how I love babies. Like, don't put Sister Elfie in front of a family with babies. She'll be distracted the whole time at mass. She'll be just praying with the baby. And anyway, but then I said, like, okay, Lord, that's beautiful, but let me check out the Salesians. And so that's when I stumbled upon them, and I visited, and I entered that. I visited in February of 2009, and August of 2009, I entered. Yes.
Wow.